Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Top 5 Wednesday. The topic for this week is books with no romance. So when I first heard about this topic I thought that it would be quite a tricky one to do, but the more I thought about it the more I realised that certain genres don't rely on romance as much as others, and I have managed to pick 5 books that I've really enjoyed that don't involve any romance. So the first one I want to talk to you about is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This is a popular historical fiction novel that I'm sure a lot of you have read or at least seen around. There was a film made of it a few years ago which was really lovely too. It's about a little girl called Liesel who is an orphan. She's living with her foster family in Nazi Germany, and at the start of this book she can't read, but she has an inexplicable attraction towards books, and she steals them from the piles of books all over the street ready to be burned, and she brings them home, and her foster father helps her learn to read through these books. It's a really lovely story about one girl's love of books growing in this very dark, uncertain, emotional time. The family end up hiding a Jewish man as well, so there's lots of other things going on, but it's a really lovely little story, very unique. It's partly narrated by Death as well, which I found really interesting to read. So yeah, it's a really lovely World War II book that I thoroughly recommend you read, and there's no romance in it, so yeah. The next one I want to talk to you about is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Now, the film version of Coraline is one of my favourite films ever. I love it, and it's one of those rare occasions where I do prefer the film to the book. If you don't know, Coraline is about a little girl called Coraline who moves into a new house with her parents, and her parents don't really have all that much time for her. She's bored a lot of the time, and then she finds a door in this new house to an alternate reality where the house and her parents exist, but they are different. Her parents are much nicer to her, they have more time for her, and in order to stay in this permanent world with them she needs to replace her eyes with black buttons like they have. So it's very creepy, very quirky, and it's basically her learning that the lines between good and bad are blurred pretty much all of the time, and yeah, it's a really lovely little story, but I personally would recommend the film more than the book, but I did still enjoy the book, but I just think the film is better. But again, no romance in Coraline. The next one I want to talk to you about is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I read this book very recently, last month. I know I talked about it in my Read-A-Rama wrap-up. This is a horror possession story about a girl who is showing signs of schizophrenia, but her parents believe that she is possessed by a demon, and because the family are quite poor, they sell the process of her exorcism to a TV station, which then televises it as a kind of reality show, and it's told from the perspective of this girl's little sister, and so we get alternate chapters. We get from the time when the exorcism is actually happening, and then 15 years later the sister is being interviewed by a writer about what actually happened to her sister and the family. Really great book, very exciting, very much heart in mouth story, and there are lots of twists and turns. It's a really great horror book, very scary, and not even a hint of romance in this book, so yeah. The next one I want to talk to you about is Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This is another popular YA book. The film came out last year, I think it was. It's about a boy whose mum is dying of cancer, and he has a lot of obviously very bad guilty feelings about this, and he can see a yew tree from his bedroom window, and one night this yew tree transforms into this huge monster that tells him stories and kind of fables, and ultimately helps him deal with his feelings and come to terms with what's actually happening in his family. It's very sad, but again it's very much focused on family dynamics rather than romance, so yeah, I definitely recommend Monster Calls. And the last one I want to talk to you about is one of my favourite children's classics of all time, and that is of course Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Of course there's no romance in this. This was literally the first book that I thought of when I knew that I was going to have to think of books with no romance in, so yeah, it's certainly my favourite book with no romance in. It's just full of weird and wonderful awesomeness rather than romance, so yeah, obviously Alice in Wonderland. And that is it for this week's Top 5 Wednesday. What are some of your favourite books with no romance in? Please let me know. I will leave all of my social media in the description down below. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye bye!